founded by members of former developer Relic Entertainment, the company behind Homeworld, Dawn of War and Company of Heroes. Blackbird Interactive has focused on developing real-time strategy and simulation games since 2007. The latest title, Crossfire, Legion, starts from having a mobile mothership and instead tries to reincarnate another nostalgic in classic game style, Command and Conquer. Crossfire, Legion is set in the dystopian future of the Crossfire series, where corporations, rather than countries, are the ruling power, with 3 distinct factions. Global Risk is a typical corporate military superpower that has access to a range of powerful conventional hardware such as tanks and jets. The Blacklist is a group of freedom fighters who somehow got their hands on rocket-propelled helicopters, stealth technology, and heavy artillery, but usually possess less advanced means of combat. And finally, New Horizons is a techno-fascist regime that wants to liberate humanity by enslaving it. Their units are extremely advanced, equipped with personal energy shields and plasma weapons. Crossfire, Legion's gameplay is pretty much what you'd expect from a Command and Conquer-inspired game. There are resources to collect, buildings to construct, units to train, and enemies to move. It's functional, if not very inspired. The number of units available for training is limited by mission in the campaign and by a deck in multiplayer. Typically, players only have a few units worth training on each mission, and there's also an extremely limited number of building types, which simplifies gameplay but makes it a bit bland. The campaign typically provides players with 2 types of infantry, 2 types of vehicles, and 2 types of aircraft, for a total of 6 units. Additional units will occasionally be available, but not often. This is somewhat mirrored in multiplayer where, when choosing one of 9 commanders, you can choose from 7 units to make up your match roster. This means that the player is still constrained by decisions they have made before the game even begins, and adapting to enemy strategy can be difficult when choosing units to counter their deck. It's clear that Blackbird Interactive is pushing for a competitive multiplayer experience, but limiting in-game customization could create balance issues. In campaign and multiplayer, commanders have access to commander abilities ranging from extremely powerful fire at will that eliminates entire armies to significantly less useful abilities. In campaign, these powers can be used quite liberally, as the energy replenishes with each unit killed or lost, but in competitive multiplayer it is a finite resource that does not replenish. This means that frugality is important when it comes to using energy reserves. The campaign is short but entertaining, with forgiving difficulty regardless of difficulty. The most difficult missions are those where no units can be built, and even these are not particularly difficult if the player is careful. The story follows each of the 3 factions as they negotiate their goals and is quite boring and memorable. That said, the variety of missions is where the game shines. There are point capture missions, attack missions, defense missions, timed missions, etc. that makes for a decent range of destinations to check out. Unfortunately, the combat feels a bit flat at times. While many units have a special ability or 2, most feel niche or even out of place. It's a bit different in situations where reinforcements can't be built, but most of the campaign can be beaten simply by limiting the population to the strongest available units and sending them out to crush everything in their path. Speaking of the population cap, it's set at 150 in most campaign missions and a max of 300 in multiplayer. This might seem like a lot of units, since workers cost 1 population. When infantry can cost 3 or 4 villagers each, vehicles can cost more than 10, and some powerful units can cost as much as 20, the population limit can be reached relatively quickly and with few units. It's also unfortunate that the game suffers from static base placement. Bases can only be built on a base area with nearby resource nodes, which severely limits your ability to create an advanced defense-gathering base to attack enemies. That said, there are quite a few nodes to build upon and expansion is needed to have any chance of winning in multiplayer. Defending these extensions can also be a challenge. Graphically, the game looks good, if a bit generic, and runs great. There were no noticeable drops in frame rate. Unit models and buildings are detailed and easy to distinguish, which is important as targeted attacks on specific units can be crucial to victory. In the campaign, the map design is well done, objectives are clearly marked, and attack areas are easy to identify and defend. The multiplayer maps also feel relatively well designed and generally have the symmetry required in a competitive RTS. A limited number of tickets are available, however, the existing ones differ in layout and terrain type, giving the game a dynamic feel. A total of 5 maps are available in player versus player, 8 in payload, 2 in cooperative, 1 in battle lines and 1 in brawl. Overall, Blackbird Interactive has done a great job designing their maps. It's just a shame there aren't more of them. The musical score of this game is also top-notch. It features a menacing synth vibe befitting its dystopian future setting. The sound effects are equally good and the sounds of weapons and destruction are immersive and visceral, but Crossfire, Legion suffers from the same "we need extra pylons" or "we need extra lords" issue that has become a meme for StarCraft. Some jokes are very repetitive and can get a bit boring. However, the voice acting during cutscenes and gameplay cinematics is really well done. Ultimately, Crossfire Legion is a competent, if generic, command-and-conquer-style game. It will appeal to those who enjoy the nostalgia of C&C, but given the largely forgettable campaign, limited selection of maps, few buildings, and small selection of units, it probably won't have the same long-term appeal as other RTS games. Crossfire Legion is now available for PC. Our rating, 3 out of 5. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and support my channel.